Okay. Looks like we're live. All right. Hello. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to this Thursday edition of Crypto with Chris. I've got some pretty interesting stuff I wanted to lay out today. Definitely some boring but interesting price action over the past week, but some interesting developments. I've also been digging into a lot of alt charts, trying to just kind of find hidden gems, hidden things that I want to, potentially run with as the market gets going. But before I get into that, I wanted to kind of touch on a couple of things first. So I went back and watched this last week, or on Monday was the first stream I did on X here. And the resolution was pretty much crap all the way through. So I did want to remind everybody that I do record all these and I immediately upload them to YouTube right after I'm done with it. And so you'll get full, clear, high-res replays of it there. And the links to all that are in my X profile. There's like a Linktree link there. So just click that and you can get to my YouTube channel and all my other stuff. But the other thing is I wanted to enable like the chat feature on X here while I was doing this. But I learned in doing that only you have to be a verified user in order to be able to use the chat, which I'm kind of not cool with either. So I think ultimately in the end, I'm just going to move this whole show directly over to YouTube anyway. So I've actually already started that process. I couldn't do it today because there's still some more setup involved, but this may be short-lived doing it here on X, but I'm doing it for today. So be it. Hopefully the resolution will be better, but if not, if it sucks, if it's all cloudy or distorted or pixelated or whatever, feel free to just go and watch the replay on YouTube when we're done here, and you can get higher res image there. So yeah, anyway, all right, let's get started. So first of all, let's start with the cycles. We are in a new cycle. We basically ended here on, it turned out, day 50 because we rocketed up here. We set a new higher high, and yes, initially it was a higher high based on a fake news pump, which kind of invalidated a little bit, but then it continued to push higher, at least above this higher high here. So when we got this low here combined with a high that's higher than here, that pretty much constitutes a new cycle. So that's that. There we are. What does that mean? Well, now I'm trying to figure out, the big question from this point is it going to be a left translated cycle or a right translated cycle? Meaning, will we get the high in the first half or the right, or in the latter half? And one thing I can't help but notice as I look at this here is this really, it really could be the makings of a pretty, potentially ugly Head and Shoulders, basically. I mean, if you draw that as the neckline, and here's your first shoulder, right shoulder, here's your head, and then this is potentially, boom, like that. That's just something I'm paying attention to. This has gone up high enough, I feel like, at this point that it makes for a high enough right shoulder. Back when it was kind of poking around down here and it just wasn't really forming anything. But now that it's up this high, it's at least sort of met the criteria, I feel like. And, again, not saying this will happen, but it could potentially do this and nuke down. And there's your case for, lower lows. Another thing to keep in mind is that, is that really we're still setting kind of, we're setting higher highs and higher lows here, but in the larger grand scheme of things, we're still just setting a lower high from up here. And then, obviously until we exceed that, it's going to technically be a lower high. So I'm really curious to see how this is going to play out. Like if we switch over to this main chart and look at it on the weekly, trying not to keep I know my charts can look a bit cluttered at times, but I'm trying to keep them simple. But basically what I'm looking at here on the weekly is we still could, come down and close below this bull market support band. We're, what is it? About 28. So about $700 above it, give or take right now. But, I'm still kind of waiting out the week before I really kind of finalize my judgment on what this means in terms of this pump here. And I know, like, right now, if we look at it on the daily has been really interesting because it's just hard to make any heads or tails of it. I still feel like people are very gun shy, very like, I don't know, what if they approve the ETFs tomorrow? What if, and so they just want to be in. And I feel like people are still in that mindset of better to be safe than sorry. Maybe they bought here and maybe they're even upside down. Maybe they bought here on a whim. They kind of FOMO'd in up here and they're sitting here and they don't want to sell it because now they're wary that, the ETFs are going to get approved next week. And so it's like, why sell at a loss when, next week it's going to blow up again? And I get that. And so I feel like everybody's still just kind of frozen in place right now with all of this and just aren't sure what to do. And I think it's going to take some time for that to go away. And headlines aren't helping. So, I mean, you could argue to a degree that this, even though it was fake news, might have served to put in a floor, for the remainder of the year. And that's absolutely a plausible scenario. I mean, it might hold here, or at least kind of hold above this support band and just go sideways for the rest of the year while it's waiting for things to play out. Because they know it's like, even if the SEC doesn't approve it next week, it's virtually a lock at this point. It's 90% chance that it's going to happen between now and the next deadline in January. So, at that rate, it's like, why not buy now? And I can see that logic. And to some degree, I may buy too. In fact, what this has done for me is it has prompted me to start looking at alts, start looking at sort of market cap dominance, which I'll get into here in a minute, and just sort of see how the rest of the market is playing this situation. Because not all of them, like if we touch briefly on dominance right now, ETH dominance has gone way down. Bitcoin dominance has continued to push, even set, higher highs here. Total 3 is basically flat. But others dominance is rolling over big time. So we've got ETH rolling over, others dominance rolling over, ETH dominance continuing to peak up. But there are a decent handful of select alts that people are loading up on, like the sort of, I feel like the choice alts that, are going to be around for a while and are going to make the run. People are starting to load up on them. And so I'm not ready to do that yet. But what I am doing is spending time, again, trying to find these gems and look for ones that are showing major relative strength against Bitcoin and aren't being phased by, this Bitcoin dominance push up. Because normally, like, again, when you see Bitcoin dominance peaking up like this, and actually let's just look at it on its own, isolated. I mean, it's pumping. It's bounced hard off of its, bull market support band. Again, it's set a higher high, and it's a lot of alts are, here's like a Bitcoin pair list, and can I sort it by this? Yeah. So like, I mean, this isn't everything, but there's a lot of bleeding alts right now. And so it's like very risky to just go dumping into alts right now. But what I'm going to get into in a bit is there's definitely a few that are like worth paying attention to. And I'll show you my criteria for that. And I've kind of touched on it in previous episodes, but I've added to my list, and then I've got a cool chart that I kind of came up with here at the end that I'll look at. But in terms of Bitcoin, again, it's kind of early to say. Really, again, what I'm looking for, if we go back to the weekly, is I'm just going to wait and see how the week ends out, how the week shakes out. I think if it closes below this white line, which was the previous sort of cycle high, based on this wick right here, that's not a great sign. So I think if it closes above it, that's even a better sign. If it closes below this red line and back into the bull market support band, then that's even worse. And that might not happen until next week. It might just take a week. Maybe next week people will be like, oh, I guess, well, it's not going to happen. Maybe I'll sell for now. So we'll see. I'm not doing anything though in terms of Bitcoin, but if it does continue to push up into this range, I might look to get some of my allocation back, maybe 40-50% of it, something like that. If it just looks like it's not going to look back, but I'm still going to be super wary of this head and shoulders situation here because, it pushed up really hard here and then and then just rolled over and then, rolled over here. So yeah, we set a higher high in terms of this little pump here, but we have not set a higher high in terms of either of these, barring this fake news pump. And so, yeah. And we have to keep in mind that, again, the ETFs might not get approved until mid-January. So there's a lot of weeks between now and then for this to kind of for this momentum to fizzle out here. So that's what I'm going to be paying attention to. Now, in terms of the alts that I'm looking at, there's probably 4, 5, 6, maybe 8 that I think are getting onto my short list. Although my short list, you could say, is starting to get bigger. But I just want to kind of touch on a few of them and briefly look at why I think that they're viable charts. And a lot of these, I'm not really even paying attention to the fundamentals, with some exceptions, but by and large, a lot of times, especially in crypto, especially in the bull phase of a crypto cycle, fundamentals actually mean very little. I've learned over the years that really what it comes down to is just buzz. What has the most buzz and what people want to buy, because that's really what dictates the valuation of a lot of these, particularly ones that are brand new and don't have enough sort of fundamental base to even establish like a real world valuation of the project. Like you have some of these projects like Solana. Let's take Solana, for example. Solana, it already had its big cycle. Let me just look at it on the USD pair. It had its big run up cycle. It started out in late 2020. It ran up. This was its big mega hype cycle. All of this was based on speculation. There was no sort of true valuation of Solana as a project at this point. There was barely anything even going on. There was hardly any value lock. There was hardly any protocols running. I mean, there were some, but it was like paled in comparison to something like Ethereum. I mean, it was a fraction of a percent of the type of value lock and transaction and development that was happening on, say, Ethereum, for example, or even other stuff like Avalanche, or some of those other chains. So there's no way you could apply an actual valuation. So none of this was all just kind of vapor. This was all entirely speculation. But now we've had a whole 2 years to go since then, and now we actually have now we've got a better metric to kind of value what Solana is actually worth as a project. We can see who's developing on it. We can see how much development is happening. We can see how many protocols are being launched. We can see how much value is being locked into these protocols, how much it's generating in fees, all of this stuff. And so at this point, the rate that Solana goes up isn't going to be based on this mega hype pump speculative thing. It's going to be based on actual real world usage. Now, that said, Solana actually has a lot of promising developments going on there. It's crushing it in terms of developers and project commits and things like that. It is in a good upward trajectory. And if you look at this chart, I've kind of flipped. Actually, let's look at the Bitcoin chart specifically. So I kind of like that a little bit better. So a couple things I've noticed going on here with Solana. It's been in a downtrend against Bitcoin really since, late 2021. And all this time, the bull market support band has been going down and down and down and down. Finally, it sort of bottomed here. But it was still technically in a downtrend because this was still going down. But since then, it's come back up to the top of this diagonal channel. It did bounce, and it sort of looked like it was continuing its downward trend. But kind of something interesting happened along throughout here. As you can see, this bull market support band has basically leveled off. It's no longer going just straight down. It's basically going sideways now. And you could argue it's even, if you zoom in close, it's even actually trending upwards a little bit. Now, granted, it can always trend upwards for a brief moment here and there. Sometimes it's a lot more common for one of the bands to, or one of the extents to, like here, trending up. But here we've got both of them trending up, and it's been going sideways now. Like if you look at the sideways price action, yes, it was in a downtrend all this time, but also it's been literally going sideways since November of 2022. So that's almost an entire year that it's basically been going sideways. Yeah, it had a couple of big nukes here and here that were really ugly, but the price is the same right now. It's actually even a little bit better, than it was in November of 2022. It's basically gone sideways this whole time. And that's what's showing up here in this bull market support band. That's why this is leveled off, and that's why this is going sideways. Secondly, it has broken out of this wedge, not by a ton. And I don't always put a ton of stock into a diagonal trend line like this. I tend to value the horizontal ranges and support resistance levels a little bit more. And yeah, it's still got some work to do here. It still has to close above this mid range, which it's struggled to do now for quite some time. And even on the USD pair, like I talked about on Monday, it's struggled to get above this level here for quite a while too. But this is constructive to me. This is telling me that, while everything else, not everything, but a lot of things are bleeding out against Bitcoin right now, this is holding its own and even putting in, decent green candles on weekly levels. And so this is something I'm going to pay attention to. And I do think, Solana is probably going to be in my bag as we go forward. I don't know to what degree, but I do think that it's got solid upside potential. Now, do I think it's going to set a new higher high against Bitcoin? I don't know, but also it doesn't necessarily need to. I think is an important thing to keep in mind. Even on the USD value, do I think it sets a new all-time high against USD? It could. I think a lot of things would have to go right, as opposed to here in this early phase. Almost virtually nothing had to go right except for FTX promoting the hell out of it, which is what drove a lot of this. And sort of the potential of, a bajillion transactions per second for a half a penny was kind of their big claim to fame. Now, granted, I mean, they're cool. Solana does have some cool stuff. Their smart contracts are far more advanced than EVM and Ethereum type smart contracts. They can do a ton of stuff, and I get why there's big potential there. But for it to actually set a new all-time high in USD value, it's going to require some major actual real world adoption. It's not going to get by on just hype alone, I think, at this point. But that said, even if it doesn't set an all-time high, it's virtually a 10x away from even just breaking even. So even if it goes up and breaks even, that's still a solid 10x. That's still a great investment by any measure. Anybody would take that all day long. And I do think it probably will exceed its all-time high. I don't know if it'll go crazy. I don't know if it's going to double or anything like that. Again, that's going to require actual results. It's not going to be just hype at this point. It's going to require results. But I think if there's any project out there that has sort of potential for that to happen, this is one of them. This is as much potential, I think, as anything. So yeah, that's kind of my play on Solana. I think it's good. I think this chart is actually really constructive development here, like I said. So I'm going to be paying attention to this. I don't know when I'll buy yet. I think it's going to be more dictated by, does Bitcoin nuke again or not, in the coming days or weeks. I might end up buying sooner rather than later, but I don't know. Anyway, let's look at the next one. So this next one is BitTensor. I've touched on BitTensor in the past. I'm super bullish on this project. The price action isn't great right now, admittedly. It's been around since before, I think, like late last year, the beginning of last year, but it wasn't actually listed on any exchanges until outside of its own peer-based exchange until around March. So that's really all I can do in terms of the price history, but it does go actually back quite a bit further. Regardless, it doesn't look good. And so this is a project that I'm more bullish on just based on fundamentals alone, because the project actually, the token value has gone down a fair bit. It's kind of at a key support level right now against, well, actually, these are just USD pairs. So, but it's at a key support level. It's below the bull market support band. It's kind of in a downtrend. It doesn't look great. But again, there are really good things fundamentally going on with this. And I think that this project is going to be a big player in the blockchain AI space. I think they're just doing too much good stuff. They've got too many good developments, and they're continuing to just, heads down, crank away. Lots of new developments coming online. They've done major network upgrades just in the past, in recent days and weeks. And I've got some friends that are running validators on these, and there's just tons and tons of development and tons of people buying into this. So even though the price kind of looks like garbage right now, and of all of these that I'm following in terms of price, at least going back to this point here, this is the worst performing one in terms of price. And I don't technically hold any of these right now, but this is something that I do think I will look to load up on at some point. Once it reverses, once we see some reversals, I need to make a Bitcoin chart for this too, so I can look at it on its Bitcoin pair. But once it gets above this bull market support band and looks like it's starting to put in higher highs on the weekly time frame, then I'll pay attention to it. But no sense on buying it now and riding it down further. So what do we got next? So 0x0.ai. This is a newer one for me that I've more recently been paying attention to. And I actually did just buy like a small bag, just kind of a 1% bag, like a home run type swing bag of this, just because the market cap is low. But I think most of the rest of these that I'm going to touch on, I don't care about the fundamentals. Like, sure, the fundamentals are cool, but there's literally 5,000 blockchain projects out there with cool fundamentals that you could go, oh yeah, that's great. Hopefully they're successful with that. But that doesn't matter, because this, it matters what's popular, what's got the buzz, what's got kind of the best marketing, what's attracting the most attention. And this is a project that is attracting a lot of attention. And if you kind of go back and look at it, even just, it's actually not been around, since before this year, so it's brand new, which is another good sign. But this is its Bitcoin chart. It came up, it set a high here back in May, and then it sort of bounced. It's kind of doing this big cup and handle formation right now, but it did come back up and just set a new higher all-time high against Bitcoin and on its ETH pair just in this last week. And that's kind of what prompted me to go, okay, this is kind of a big cup and handle. This looks good to me. So I just, threw a few bucks at it, and this is one that I'll hold, not one that I'm going to go big in, but because it's a super, super tiny market cap. And, but this, I think, is something that is fun and is worth paying attention to. And again, it's holding its own against Bitcoin. And that's what's key in all of this. As I keep hammering in all of these shows, right now, the only thing that matters is how well it's doing against Bitcoin, because everything is kind of bleeding. And if this is holding up against Bitcoin, it's outpacing the class benchmark, and it's got people's attention, which is good. And that's what this is telling you, that it's got people's attention. So, OXO.ai or 0x0.ai. Don't get it confused with OXO. I actually went to look it up initially on CoinMarketCap or CoinGecko. And I typed in OXO and it pulled up some other project, and I was like, what the hell is this? This chart looks terrible. But it's actually 0x0.ai. So if you want to go look this up, make sure you type in 0x0, not OXO. Otherwise you'll pull up the wrong thing. So another one, I think I've touched on this one. This one isn't a new chart for me just yet. But yeah, so Injective Protocol. This is another great looking chart. It did kind of come back down a little bit on both charts, on the Bitcoin chart and the USD chart, but it's sort of basically bounced off of this bull market support band, off the 20-week moving average, and is kind of starting to trend back up again. It's continuing to show relative strength against Bitcoin. And that's, again, the key. But I like the looks of this chart. It's up a lot on the year against Bitcoin and USD. I only wish I'd have known about it back in January. But hopefully it's not too late, and hopefully it's got a lot more to go from here, even though it was at $1.27 in January and it's sitting at $8.50 now. So God, I wish I'd have known about it back then, but whatever. It's funny though, because back then the thing that sucks about crypto is back then nobody was buying this except for just degens. Like, everybody's like, well, it's the beginning of a crypto phase. It's the beginning of a new 4-year cycle. The only thing that anybody who's responsible should be buying is Bitcoin and maybe some Ethereum. And Bitcoin turned out to be a great buy. Obviously it's up, but only the kind of the degen people were jumping on stuff like this back in January and riding it all this time. And so more power to them. I applaud those people. I'm not one of them. I couldn't have done that even if I would have seen this chart. But that's how it goes. So Yeah, so Injective Protocol is another one, and then Caspa. Caspa again is relatively new to me, but it's kind of doing a similar thing to Injective. I mean, it's it sort of peaked out here, came back down, and is sort of swinging back up. It's holding its own. It actually never even got all the way down to the support band. It's just kind of riding along the top, riding above the 10-week moving average, and bouncing off the 10-week moving average on the top of the Bollinger Bands, and continuing upside and continuing to set higher highs. Granted, it was now two weeks ago, but this is another good looking chart. This is the kind of stuff that I'm paying attention to, and it's these charts that have just consistently gone up on the year, that are what you pay attention to and that you want to load up on. So Rio's another one. I'm less bullish on Rio just because I've done some research on it. Fundamentally, I don't quite understand what the hell it is. Their website is super confusing. I'm sure if there's any Rio honks watching this, they're totally laughing at me. Their website's super confusing. They do like 9 different things. They've got a blockchain. They've got all this other stuff. I don't know what they do, but somebody does because their coin is outperforming. Now, granted, it's a bit rolled over. It's kind of closed down below its 20-week moving average on both pairs, and so it's not looking as strong. But it's still well up on Bitcoin on the year, and it's still well up on USD on the year. And I guess the jury's still out. If anything, if I had to on my short list, I would say this is more towards the bottom of my short list. Well, actually, if you can see, here is sort of technically my short list, as it were, and it is in fact at the bottom of it. So, yeah, but who knows? I'm paying it. It's just something to pay attention to because it has done well at points this year. This is a new one that a friend turned me on to today. Very new project, hasn't been out very long at all. Zero knowledge network, basically. Hasn't even been out. Well, geez, maybe for not even a few months. So it's really hard to gauge anything on this. It's too early to tell, but it does kind of look good, at least. So much so that I can't even do like a weekly chart. Otherwise, it just wouldn't show me anything. But you can tell that at least on the daily chart, it has bottomed out here. The 10-day moving average has crossed back up over the 20-day moving average, and price is trading above both of those and kind of bouncing off the top of the Bollinger Bands and back on the 20, or I'm sorry, on the 10, the green line, the 10 here on both of these. So that's a strong signal. And so really with this, what I'm looking out for, and I set alerts here, is just, does it come up and set a higher high? Does it break this level here? And so that's what I'm going to be paying attention to. And I set alerts on both of these. I could maybe move it up to the top of this wick, but maybe I'll do that if and when we get there. But for now, I just want to see what it's doing. If it comes up and sets a higher high here, it'll ding me and it'll get my attention, and I'll kind of dig into it a little bit more and pay attention. But interesting to note, it's up 18% on the day. So that's nothing to sneeze at. But, with these micro caps, obviously that happens all the time. I mean, that happens every day. Sometimes it could be down 18% tomorrow, just as likely. So, I'm not going to put any stock into that. Obviously, I'm not going to go chasing it. The last thing you want to do when you see a microcap alt go up 18% is go and buy it, because that's a quick way to lose 18% of your money the next day. So just, whatever. Just pay attention to it, watch it, let the chart unfold, see if it continues this trajectory, and go from there. But this is something that I'm watching and is on my radar now. So the next one, this is a funny one. This is actually one that I touched on back in August because it was really pumping. Like I remember at this time, let me go back to this chart real quick. When we were looking at this chart and we had this big, huge alt run up here while Bitcoin was kind of going down or sideways and ETH was going down. We had this mega run up here. This A cash was actually kind of leading that charge. And so that's what we're seeing, right here in this pump here. And since then it's settled back down, and it's kind of right back at the middle of the bands here. So it'll be interesting to see where it goes. But, overall, it's showing relative solid strength against Bitcoin. It's certainly well up on the year against Bitcoin. And it's just, one that's doing this versus many that aren't. And so in that sense, I think it's worth paying attention to. And so I don't know where this falls on my short list. It's maybe closer to the bottom. Actually, it's funny. I say that, and I look over, and it actually is second from the bottom. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't know where I'm going to go with this one, but it's just, again, something to look for, something to watch, and sort of see what happens. This is a new one for me that I was turned on to just this morning. Also, brand new project, hasn't been around very long, but has a really good looking chart, at least for the handful of months that it's been out. Here's the bull market support band, barely just starting to form because there's only barely enough weeks in the chart history for it to even form one. But what do you know? It's way above it. It's not even anywhere close to it. It's cruising along way above its bull market support band, and it's riding way above even the 20-day moving average on both pairs, on the Bitcoin pair and on the USD pair here. So. It's got all the makings of a solid chart, and certainly if it keeps up this trajectory, I mean, it's, at the moment, it's basically setting new all-time highs, every day, right now. So, in fact, here, maybe I'll set myself an alert. Geez, it's right there already, just about. Well, I was gonna say, once it gets past $1, alert me. But watch that happens later today at this rate. Either way, it's just kind of something to pay attention to. But this is a solid looking chart. Granted, it's very short, and so it's hard to really base any history off of. But it's like you got to keep in mind at this stage of the crypto cycle, many of the best performing charts, many of the best performing projects throughout the course of the cycle don't exist until around right now, or maybe a little bit later. Like, you think about DeFi summer in the previous cycle, that wasn't until, into the halving year, basically the June, July, August of the halving year, which we're not even in the halving year yet. We're still the year prior. So, and all of those projects kicked off and ended up being some of the best performers. So you got to remember, stuff that is going to be crushing it in this next cycle, or this current cycle rather, might not even be on your radar yet, might not even exist yet. And it's going to be charts that look like this, that could end up being those. And so it's like, yeah, don't go throw all your money into this right now, but also, keep it on your radar, be looking at it. Watch, this is going to pop up and hit $1 right here while I'm talking about it. Well, we'll see. And then next, another one, it's funny too, as far as a lot of these, Ator, Akash, 0x, I don't know what any of these are. I have no idea what any of these even do. I haven't even had a chance to even go to their website or look at it. But it's funny, I say that, and half the time I go to these websites and I look at these projects and they tell me all the stuff that they're going to do, I don't even necessarily understand half of it anyway. And it's like, that doesn't matter. You don't have to be a blockchain, programmer. You don't have to be a whatever scientist to know that this is a good investment. All you need to know is that everybody else wants it too. And so, number go up. And I know that sounds stupid, but name me, one project last year outside of Ethereum and Bitcoin even, or last cycle, where that wasn't the case. All of the stuff that blew up was based on just because people thought it was going to go up and people thought it had potential, or people thought it was cool, or whatever. Just people were talking about it. So if you go to one of these websites and you don't understand what it is, as stupid as this sounds, that almost doesn't matter. What matters is that other people want to buy it too. And that's how the crypto market works right now. And someday that probably won't be the case. Someday it'll be based more on real world valuations, just like the stock market, P ratios and that kind of stuff. But at the moment, that's not what crypto is. Crypto is the entire crypto space is speculative to begin with, from top to bottom, even Bitcoin and Ethereum. So if you're thinking you're buying these because it's the best technology and you know exactly what it does and you understand it and you can make, you can sit and talk for a half an hour on why it's superior to every other thing like it, that doesn't matter. None of that matters. It just matters that other people want to buy it, and clearly people want to buy this stuff. So that's why I'm looking at it. So look at this chart. So what I'm seeing here is this chart's decent. It's probably third on my list here. Sort of funny. Yes, it's above its support band. But, it hasn't even been around. Oh, I guess it has been around since the beginning. Is it even up on the year against Bitcoin? Barely. It's barely up, but it was basically riding the level. Here, let me throw a array here. What do we got? So yeah, here it is against Bitcoin on the year. So it was, even, but then just recently it had a pump up. So I don't know, maybe something happened. Who knows? So a good looking chart, but not a great looking chart. We shall see. I think that's it. I think maybe that's it. Yeah, a couple other ones. Lido, I'm still looking at. Lido's an interesting one. Lido's more like, I kind of look at Lido as like a higher beta play against ETH. But right now ETH is doing terribly, and so this is going to be doing terribly as well. But I think once the market gets going and ETH starts rolling, I think this is going to ultimately outpace ETH. And it's going to be a lot more stable than a lot of these other microcap alts that, nobody's ever heard of. And so this is why I'm paying attention to that. I think that, it's not one to load up on right now, just like ETH isn't one to load up on right now. But I do think that once the market gets rolling, this is going to be something that catches my attention and might be worth kind of taking a punt on. So, yeah. So now, when I was doing this, when I was looking at this chart, or looking at all these charts, looking at all these ETH charts, or alt charts rather, I kept thinking to myself, God, it'd be cool to like know, which one of these is kind of really doing the best, or which one is outpacing all of these, or which one is like the one you want to look at, and it's kind of hard to tell when you're clicking between all these different charts and looking at them, and they all look good on their own individually. They've all got some good stuff going for them. But then I'm like, well, I'm going to see all of them at once. And so I went over here and that's what I did. So I basically just took I started with a base chart of just like a baseline. So I just like USDC. So I've got my flat kind of zero baseline. And then I just, hit the plus sign here and added all these pairs. And so, and then sorted it by percent. So like relative percent. And I moved the scale to basically to the beginning of the year. And it's on a linear scale, not a log scale. But this way I can look at all of these all at the same time. And I can see exactly who's running the most, what's up the most on the year, what's got the best looking sort of trajectory, what's in an uptrend, what's in a downtrend, all at once. And, I like this. I don't know why literally this didn't occur to me until just today, after all of the charting that I've been doing for all these years. This was the first time this crossed my mind, and I think this is really cool. And so this is a great way to, like I said, if you've got kind of a list of stuff that you're wanting to maybe put some money into, and you're not really sure how they're doing relative to all the other things that you're sort of evaluating, just make a list like this. And literally all I did, like I'll start by making a new one so you can see. But it's really simple. So just kind of do, USDC, oops, create new chart. Dang it. So just do, USDC or you can USDT or whatever. And just find, I just found an exchange on here that had or USD, if I type it. Yeah, USDC, USD. Find an exchange that just has, a USD pair. I think I did Kraken. So that way, now you got your base chart. And then change it to line. So you just have a basic line chart. Don't worry about this for now. And then just start hitting this plus sign and start adding new charts. So these are already all on my list, but, you can just do Sol USD. Most of them you can pick an exchange, or you can do. I like that Coin Market Cap started doing this recently. They started doing this like a composite chart for a lot of these smaller cap alts, because the problem I kept having is, you pull up something like Caspa and it's trading on all these little small exchanges like MEXC and BitGet and, KuCoin and CoinEx and stuff like that. And you're like, well, Yeah, but which one of these has the most chart history? Because that's really all I care about in this instance. I'm not looking to go and trade it on any of these exchanges. I just want something that has the most chart history. And so I noticed recently they did this sort of composite, crypto information source here. So pick that, and that way you get basically all the chart history, and it just kind of throws that over the top. And now we've got this, and again, just start adding these in, and basically you'll have the same chart I did. And if you want, you can go in and change the colors. If you want one to be a certain color, just go in and change it here, hit the little gear and change it here. And you can make this chart. And then, your sort of legend will be along the side here, because all the colors of each of the charts will be matched up with these colors here. So that's really all I did to make this chart. And in the end, I ended up with this guy here. So, and you can kick some off and add some on. And if you go over here and right click on this, you can change it to different scales. It doesn't really work with logarithmic in this scenario. You kind of want to keep it, basically I like to keep it on percent, and note that it shows the percentage is based on basically the viewable time frame that's on the screen. So if you say you scroll, it's going to change all these percentages to start from this point on, as opposed to back at the beginning of 2023. So you want to make sure you just kind of scroll to where you got, 2023 right on the edge of the screen. And that'll basically show your percentage for that period of time. And so yeah. And that's what we got. And so this is a really cool way to kind of see, in real time, which ones of that short list that I've got, which ones of these are absolutely crushing it, and which ones are kind of starting to pick up and take off versus other ones. And so when I go to really shorten down my list and start putting some actual money in on some of these, this is the chart that I'm going to be looking at, is this here. So now I think it's important to note some of these are super smaller cap and super volatile, like this. What is this one? Rio. Yeah. So this wild one here is that Rio chart, and it's, not a huge market cap. In fact, I think it's, I don't think it's even 10 million. If I remember correctly, the last time I looked at it, I could be wrong, but I think it's under 10 million. And so of course you're going to get massive wild swings like this. And so you obviously have to keep that in mind, super high volatility. Whereas something like a Solana, for example, it's going to just, what color is Solana? It's that kind of sky blue. So yeah, that's probably it here. So yeah, it's just steadily going up, or maybe it's this one. Maybe I got two that are the same color. I'll have to look at that. Anyway, you can change the colors, but yeah, no, a lot of these other ones that are bigger market caps aren't going to be as volatile. And so keep in mind these crazy looking ones that are up here, there's a bit of a price that comes with that. They can go down as quickly as they can go up. So just because they're crushing everything doesn't necessarily mean that, it's not going to be a wild ride. So just obviously keep that in mind. But anyway, yeah, I thought that was a cool thing. I thought that's a cool way to kind of just get a quick visual. Like if you want to compare a bunch of, alt tokens or whatever that you're looking at, investing in, and you want to kind of see what's doing what. So yeah, anyway, I think that's kind of it as far as that goes. And yeah, I just named it Alt Radar. So this is my Alt Radar chart. It's what I'm going to use to kind of pare down my alt investments when I start throwing some money in. So anyway, I guess let's go back to Bitcoin real quick and just see where things are at before we close out. So I want to kind of look at it on the hourly for a second here. It's been kind of dancing with this line all day. It's come up, it's come down, it's come up. And a lot of that's been based on, there's been some kind of wacky sort of roller coastery financial news. I know Powell had a speech today. The Dixie's actually gone up and down a fair bit too. I think even stocks were started well into the green and have since just kind of tanked out. Also bond yields, 10-year bond yields are just blowing up, which is probably like, actually, yeah. So the yield curve is about to uninvert, but not because the 2-year, it's more because the long side is coming up to meet the 2-year, which is not great. And so even though, on paper, this might look like a good thing, it's actually not going to be a good thing. And it's going to probably require some kind of intervention. And it seems to be careening towards that relatively quickly here. So I don't know what that means for Bitcoin and everything else, but this is going crazy. And liquidity is basically just kind of going in a bit of a sideways. I know I was looking for it. I know I mentioned back here, I wanted to see if liquidity was going to set a higher high, which it technically did. It did eclipse this, but then of course it was right back down here the next day, and it's now not higher than it at the moment. So there's a lot of just wonkiness going on right now in all the markets, and stuff is just kind of on a knife edge. And I feel like something major is going to happen soon. And I don't know if that means major to the upside or major to the downside. But something is going to happen. Something is definitely going to happen. So I think it's going to be time for me to get some money back into the system, but not all of it, because, I don't want to go fully allocated. Granted, keep in mind, I was fully allocated starting in January 6th. And so I only kind of sold here earlier, and I don't want to go fully allocated in only to watch it, go down to 20,000 because of some macro nuke event. So I'll have to kind of figure out what I'm doing there. But stuff is messy, and I think we're seeing that, just in a general sense across the board with all markets. So yeah. So here, actually, kind of final recap. What I'm looking at going into the weekend is to see if Bitcoin comes down and closes below here, and ultimately comes down, closes below here, this level here, and gets sort of back into this bull market support band. I guess if I had to put numbers on it, I would say that, it's almost 50-50, maybe 60%. I think it comes back down here, but there's certainly a chance that it could stay. Also, there was a trend line I had going that it broke down and closed down below for a while, and then, on that pump blew back up, and now it's basically back again riding this trend line. So I'll be curious to see too if it has flipped this trend line back to support again. So we've got kind of an inflection point coming up here, in terms of this horizontal level, the 28K horizontal level, which I think is sort of the big level, the big important level. Does it stay above 28K? Does it go below 28K? Basically above it's, bullish, below it's bearish. But this trend line here is, just throw that into the mix too, basically. So that's where we're at. All right. I think that's it. And yeah. All right. So have a good weekend, everybody. And I'm going to upload this to YouTube. It's possible that by Monday, I will have moved this whole show over to YouTube. And if that's the case, I'll announce that accordingly in my Telegram channel. So if you're not following that, again, click on my link tree in my X profile, and you can go to my Telegram channel and subscribe there and get alerts to wherever it is that I'm going with this, whether it's going to be here next week or just directly on YouTube next week. So, all right. I guess that's it. Have a good weekend, everybody, and I'll see you next week.